Marketer of the Day, episode 543, Stackify, hard work, daily persistence, continuous improvement, constant focus, and brand innovation, with Matt Watson.
Hey everyone, we're so glad you're listening to the podcast again. This is the Marketer of the Day, and our Marketer today is Matt Watson, and Matt is the founder and CEO of Stackify, and Matt has been a developer and hacker for over 15 years, and he loves solving hard problems with code. Now, he sold his first startup called VinSolutions for $150 million, and he started Stackify to solve the biggest challenge he had as the CTO there, and he's skilled at SEO, blogging, and content marketing, and Stackify receives hundreds of thousands of monthly visits as a result of Matt's successful content marketing. So all kinds of crazy stuff to talk about, right? Programming, marketing, cranking out the content. So Matt, glad to be talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be here.
So with all the crazy stuff happening in this crazy world, what's on your mind these days? What's your focus?
Growth, man. That's what it's all about. Just trying to grow a business.
And where do you see people maybe falling short of that? Because, I mean, as you know, it's easy to get caught up in putting out the fires, the day-to-day grind, just paying the bills. So how do we sort of manage both of those things? How do we do what needs to be done, but also look ahead and make sure that we've got this growth?
You know, one of the best things somebody ever told me is, every day just trying to aim to get 1% better. Right. And over the course of a month, it's, you get 30% better. Right. And you're right. It's the daily grind of there's so many different things to do, getting pulled in so many different directions, but slowly trying to incrementally make improvements to things, little things here and there. It does add up over time.
I can totally relate to that because I'm also a computer programmer. I do a lot of PHP scripts, WordPress plugins, and I've put out a lot of my own plugins, things like that. And when I look back at those sort of the businesses that have died or the software that's just kind of fallen to the wayside, and I'm sure you can relate to this of having a project going and then you put it aside for a month, the month becomes a year, next thing you're like, oh yeah, I haven't even touched that for 5 years, it just totally died a slow death. And I look back at some of those things and I'm thinking, if I'd only put in 10 minutes a day fixing some bugs or working on some feature or just blocked out an hour per week on that, I could have kept it going. So it's not like it takes this huge time commitment. It's not like we have to pull all-nighters. It seems like, just like when you're saying that, when I've dropped the ball on things, so to speak, it wasn't because I dropped the ball for a week. It was just because I let so much time pass without these incremental improvements.
Yeah, and for our own marketing at Stackify, it's just, every day trying to improve one of our product pages or our, automated email workflows or, old blog posts and updating them or whatever it is. It's just every day trying to do a little bit at a time of just continuing to update that on the marketing side.
So do you have any secrets or tips and tricks on that sort of daily persistence? Because it's easy to say, every day do improve your product page or improve this, but how the heck do you stick with it?
Well, I mean, for us, we do have a marketing team, so we've got 2 or 3 people that's their kind of full-time job, right? Is to work on our marketing. But even myself, I'm always trying to figure out how to improve things and how to make them better, and it's just kind of a never-ending process, I guess. Okay,
yeah. I mean, fair enough, right? You have that team, and for the team, they're under salary. It's like, well, if they don't revisit stuff every day, then they're not performing their job. They're fired. But I mean, for you as the owner, it's sometimes tough to remain motivated for some of those things. So I mean, how do you stay productive with all that? How do you keep your mood up and on all those sorts of things?
I think it's just staying focused on what's the most important thing, and for us, it's growth, right? How do we grow? How do we grow faster? And if the most important piece to that is sales and marketing, it's like, okay, every day I got to get up and I got to work on how do we improve our sales and marketing. That may not be even for me, that may not be my preferred thing to do. Like you, I'd rather actually go hide somewhere and write code as a software developer, but to the business, the sales and marketing side of it is the most important thing now. So it's just kind of grinding through it, even though it may not be my preferred work activity.
Fair enough. So now you got me a little bit curious. Can you tell me about what Stackify is all about, what you guys do?
Yeah, so our customers are other software developers. So anybody who has some sort of custom app that they create, that's important to their business. Basically, if you're ever on a website and the website's slow or getting a lot of errors or it's not working the right way, that's really frustrating to you as a user. And if you're trying to order pizza on Pizza Hut's website, you can easily leave there and go somewhere else and order pizza somewhere else, right? So somebody like Pizza Hut, or your business needs to know when those things happen, and Stackify collects all the data to be able to do that. So we can tell people, basically every click that happens on your website, how long did it take? Why did it take that long? How to make it faster? What kind of errors that users get? How to fix those errors? All that sort of stuff.
So it sounds like the way that you're describing all of this, it sounds like compared to, say, like a Google Analytics or some of these like click maps and heat maps, it sounds like that you guys are more specifically oriented to like the website software, like the apps that are running, and not just regular old web pages. Is that right?
Yeah, it's more of the developer's code itself. So we can tell a developer, it's like, hey, this database query in your code is slow, and how long it how often they call it and stuff like that.
Well, great. And so how did this come about? Was this a matter of you were scratching your own itch, or how did you sort of come about this solution of helping other software developers and other apps, make things faster and better?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I was the CTO and founder of another company called VinSolutions that you mentioned earlier. And it was a very high growth company. We went from having, say, like 5 to 10 software developers to a couple years later having 40. And we just had every problem in the world, from performance problems and scalability issues and just bugs in our software and just growth. I mean, we just had every problem. And the developers just didn't have any tools at all to help troubleshoot those issues. If we had a big problem in our software, it was because our users found it and they were all calling into our support team, who was melting down because they had to take all these phone calls. Like, we just didn't have the visibility and the insights that we needed to know about those sort of problems and troubleshoot them quickly. So we really the goal was just to build something that was really designed for developers to help them troubleshoot application problems and improve the performance of their software.
Okay, great. And it sounds like by having this sort of tool in place, forgive me on this, I'm not too familiar with these types of tools here. It sounds like these help these companies kind of get ahead of the customer support problem. As you said, it sounds like a lot of companies out there just wait until the problems happen, and then some small percentage of the customers complain, but then there's this whole other world of people that are just, like you said, going somewhere else. They're on Pizza Hut, there's an error, it's slow, they go somewhere else, so maybe they lost hundreds of customers, and then 10 customers complain, and then maybe it got fixed a week or two later. So it sounds like by having a tool in place here, people can get the jump on these sorts of problems before everyone complains and it has to go through this whole process.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And another example of this is one of our customers. He felt like part of their software was slow. He's like, oh, I always kind of thought it was slow, but I thought maybe it was just me. And then they install software like ours, and they're like, okay, nope, not just me. I can see it's slow for everybody. A lot without the data that people rely on their kind of gut instincts or their spidey senses, and we just give them the data they need to know, like, hey, this thing gets called thousands of times a day. How long does it take to load, and how can you improve it?
Right. And guys like you and I know that computers work really quickly. Computers work in milliseconds, and it's a little bit of a double-edged sword there, because on one hand, when we just try to eyeball things, we can only perceive things as slow as like 0.1 seconds, but so that we can't really tell the difference if something is taking, 50 milliseconds or 250 milliseconds, and then us regular rational human beings say, well, who cares about 0.1 seconds? But it's like, well, if the database query is slow, and if the internet connection is slow, and then if everything gets sort of jammed up in there, then that all piles up, and then people are wondering, well, is it my internet connection? Is it my computer or my mobile phone that's slow? So there's all that sort of guesswork. And so this software that you put out, what does it interface with? Like what platforms, what languages?
So currently we support the .NET and Java programming languages. In the future, we're working towards supporting some other ones, but that's what we support today.
All right. Well, fantastic. And then so you work with all these companies that have these .NET and Java applications that are slow or buggy. And do you see that this is a really a missing piece in a lot of these businesses? Do a lot of businesses out there, have they tried tools like these? Do they already use tools like these, or are they totally unaware that this sort of thing exists?
It's a mixture. A lot of really big companies have used tools like ours. We have some competitors that are only focused on the super large enterprises, and our focus is more on kind of small, medium-sized businesses to make something that's affordable. Like we signed up yesterday a state government, and they had a small project they wanted to do, and I think they're going to pay us $120 a month. So it's something that's affordable for companies of all sizes. Where some of our competitors are really focused on super large enterprises, and it's like hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, millions of dollars a year to buy the software.
Right. So you're filling in the gap. You're seeing that a lot of the competitors out there are high ticket. So you're saying, well, we'll be a little more low ticket. Might be a little less money, a little more work to make that work, but there's that whole wide open space. There's that blue ocean, so to speak, where no one else is. And so so you have this cool platform called Stackify, and when you introduce it to other companies, is there any kind of a learning curve or any resistance or just any difficulties in people getting up to speed with this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there, like any kind of product, there's an education around what can it do and how can I use it. And, our product is one of those types of products that does a lot of different things. And so it's not like they install it and it does like one little feature and they quickly use that one feature and they're done. Potentially our software does a vast array of things. And it's kind of one of the challenges is getting them to continue to kind of adopt some of those new features and functions and get more value out of it.
Okay, fair enough. And then so to get that sort of onboarding figured out, how do you tackle that? Do you do one-on-one calls, or do you put them through a training course, or how do you make sure that these companies, number one, start small and use your software, and number two, don't get overwhelmed, but then number three, they use more and more of it over time so they never quit? Like, how do you get them to make this stick?
Yeah, so the first goal is getting them to install our software, right? And really, the most important thing we have to do is when they signed up for our software, we've probably got an hour or two to impress them somehow, or they're done. There's a short window of time that they're willing to play with our product and figure out if it meets a need for them and they see value in it. So we have to make it as easy as possible for them to install it, and then quickly get to that kind of aha moment that they can see, okay, I see the value in this product. I can see using it. I'm willing to, go the next step and continue to use it more. We have to do that as fast as possible.
So how do you accomplish that? With Stackify, what's the aha moment usually?
Usually it's different kinds of reporting and data that we can give them, helping them find, for example, like an error or a problem in their software that they didn't know that they had. If they can quickly see something like that, usually we got a really high chance that they'll buy our product.
Awesome. And what you're making me think of is some of the antivirus software or some of the PC cleanup, speed up your computer software, where it's on the surface, it's sort of this boring thing, but once you install it, it scans and says, hey, we cleaned up 450 errors on your computer, or we sped things up, we sped up your boot time 35%. I've noticed that these sort of antivirus, PC cleanup software are really good at giving you that metric at not just fixing things, but also showing you the improvement there.
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy. Yeah, it's showing value very quickly like that. You're right.
Well, super cool. And then, so something else that I'm curious about is we mentioned in your bio that you're really good at the SEO and the content marketing. So can you tell us about that? Like, are you the writer for this? Do you have a team? How do you get your ideas? What sort of stuff do you put out to get the word out about Stackify and how great it is?
Yeah, and so if we back up just a little bit, at my last company, we did almost all of our sales over the phone. We would call car dealers and sell them our product, basically get them on the phone and say, hey, I can help you sell more cars. Can I get a few minutes of your time for a quick demo, next week? And worst case scenario, I'll give you some great ideas about how you can improve your sales or whatever. And people would do it. It'd be easy to get people on those demos. Well, you can imagine now we're targeting software developers. They don't even have phones. They don't talk to people on the phone, right? So the whole go-to-market strategy from my old business to this one is very different. Software developers are also real finicky about things like spam. They're more likely to use ad blockers in their browser. A lot of them, may have, tinfoil hats on even, right? I mean, that's kind of the nature of developers. And the best way we figured out to reach them was through content marketing. There's kind of the universal truth of if people have a problem, they go to Google and they search for it. And that's how we really reach our audience is we currently we produce 4 new blog posts a week, and we're just constantly pumping out high quality content that helps answer the questions they're searching for on Google.
Super cool. And that's I think that's really smart that you made it a point to understand who you were going after, because as you know, it's tempting to just kind of pump stuff out, right? It's tempting to say, I'm going to write some articles or I'm going to make those phone calls, but you thought to yourself, all right, well, they're code monkeys, so they might be really paranoid. They might have a billion firewalls on everything. They might, use a dumb phone or whatever. They might do all these things where they're sort of very closed off, almost paranoid, I guess you could say. And if they're looking for that solution, they don't want you to come to them. They're going to come to you. So it's up to you to position yourself in front of those people. So when you say 4 blog posts a week, what does that entail? Are we talking video content? Are we talking short blog posts, long stuff? Like, how do you decide what to blog about and what the format is?
Yeah, so most of our blog posts are usually about 1,000 words or a little longer form. They're highly technical, so writing our blog post is really kind of complicated, and so we produce a little bit of our blog posts internally. Historically, I had did about 1 a week, but we also rely on some outside kind of freelance writers, so other software developers that are kind of around the industry from actually all over the world that enjoy writing, enjoy blogging, and we kind of work with them on the topics they write about that we want them to write about, or hot topics kind of from their industry or their perspective that's going on in the industry. So it's just a mixture of things. Early on, say about a year ago, we had more of kind of a list of keywords that we were really after. But since then, I think we've really kind of checked off most all of those. And a lot of what we do now is it's much more long tail.
And what's the reason for that? Is it a matter of you have those keywords and you cranked out the posts and you filled that gap? Or was it a matter of getting burned out or just changing things up? Like, why did you switch from that keyword list to bringing in other people and having the more long tail stuff?
Well, I mean, our website ranks for 200,000 keywords. So we have we rank for so many things now, right? So most of the things that we want to rank for, we've written about.
Okay.
So a lot of the most important things. So for example, like application monitoring, application performance monitoring, log management, .NET logging best practices, like a lot of those sorts of subjects we've already written on. So some of the stuff we do now is, and we continue to do that stuff, but a lot of it is just a lot of very long tail stuff.
All right, fair enough. And so when you look at, so I mean, you guys sounds like you guys are killing it with the content marketing and all that fun stuff. And so when you look at the other, I guess, maybe competitors in your landscape or even non-competitors, but companies that do similar stuff, are you seeing them missing out on other things? Like, do they not do their content marketing, or are they not consistent? Or like, what do you think that you guys do better as far as your marketing that other people don't do?
Well, a lot of our competitors are focused on the big enterprises, right? And so how you sell to a big enterprise is, and that what that sales cycle looks like and all those things is very different than trying to sell to small, medium-sized business. So because of that, we've just put such more emphasis on content marketing. We don't have a whole bunch of salespeople that go around and wine and dine these, big enterprise accounts. We're relying more on inbound marketing and inbound leads. So to do that, we want to keep pumping out the content that drives that inbound traffic.
Super cool. And because you're an analytics company, I'm sure that you measure all sorts of clicks and conversions and results, so you know what's working and what's not.
Yeah, we do. I mean, we have a couple really smart people on our marketing team that look at this stuff, every week. It's a never-ending thing.
Awesome. And as you're talking about how you sort of have, you have your team for this or your process for that, I'm really realizing here is, we started this call talking about how important it is to get away from the day-to-day and not be putting out fires, but also be a little bit consistent. It sounds like you really thought through who you're going after and what journey they're going to take to find you, and it's just sort of the lesson that's really sticking with me here, as far as it's really important to sit and have that time to think about the strategy and think about why you're doing what you're doing and what's not working and what you should be doing. But then I'm also hearing a lot of what you shouldn't be doing, right? That it's really tempting to say, oh yeah, let's try whining and dining these fancy clients, or let's go after them on the phone. But it sounds like a lot of your thought process is what not to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's always an evolution. I'm definitely not going to sit here and say we've got it all figured out. It's definitely a process that continues to evolve. We do a really good job these days of driving a lot of traffic to our website, to our blog and stuff. We get I think it's about 30,000 people a day from Google, from organic. So it's quite a bit of traffic, but it's still, how do we improve our lead conversion? How do we get more leads? How do we nurture those leads? How do we qualify them? What do we do with the leads? I mean, just getting them to your website is just the tip of the funnel, man. I mean, there's still so much more that goes into it.
Right. You're still hungry for more, and you're looking at the big picture, not just I'm going to machine gun all these people on the website. You're also concerned with, once they're on the website, what they're converting to. And sort of along the lines of what we're talking about here, do you have anything new and interesting and exciting coming up with Stackify? Anything you feel like sharing?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have a couple big product launches we're getting ready to do. We're a lot of what we do now is based on the performance of their applications on the server side. We're getting ready to launch some stuff that is more JavaScript client side type stuff. It's getting ready to come out real soon. We've been working on that for a while, so we're real excited. Kind of the industry name for that is real user monitoring is what it's called. And then we're working towards supporting some new programming languages, hopefully over the next few months, which will be exciting. Probably the coolest thing we're doing, though, in the short term is we've come up with this thing that we call app scoring that will give developers kind of an instant score that kind of gives them a single score around their application performance and health, so they can quickly see, like, am I an A or a B or a C or a D, and then be able to track that from day to day or week to week, and give them suggestions on how to improve it. We collect all this data, but it's kind of like, so what if you don't know what to do with the data? So the goal of the score is to kind of help give them a kind of lighthouse of, like, okay, I have all this data, and based on all the data, what does Stackify actually think of my data? And that's kind of what the score helps do.
Fantastic. So the KPI is there for the boss to look at the dashboards, and I love this concept of the app scoring because you're like inventing a new concept, right? All these other people, maybe they might have similar tools that do similar things, but you're saying we're going to go one step further and have these cool things to show, and that helps you so much because then when you demo it or you're blogging about all these new features, instead of getting into the nitty-gritty geeky details, you say, well, check this out. It's an A or a B or a C, and you've invented your own sort of terminology, your own concept there. I love it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, the way we originally looked at it was sort of like a FICO score of your credit report, right? Of how do you get kind of one score that kind of summarizes all of this stuff. And yeah, it can be a great differentiator of how we compare ourselves to other people. Of like, okay, great. Yeah, you collect all this data and you have all this information that you don't know what the hell to do with. At least we kind of can help summarize for you and give you, very specific details on how to improve it, using some real intelligence behind it.
Super cool. I love it. So it's like it's helpful, it simplifies things, and you combined an existing idea, the FICO score, with something that wasn't applied yet in your niche. And so this is really great stuff, and it's really great to hear about your company and giving us all sorts of ideas about how we can improve our own marketing and our own businesses. So looking back at all of your travels with Stackify, with VinSolutions, things like that, do you think that there's any like big number one life or business lesson that jumps out at you?
More than anything, it's just hard work, persistence. It's hard to be an entrepreneur. There's no doubt about it, and it's just the daily persistence of chipping away at it. I mean, at Stackify we're doing a lot of things right, but there's we still have our struggles of how do we grow faster, and that sort of stuff. At VinSolutions we had a ton of issues around just problems with partners and legal issues, and had to fire the CEO twice, and things like that. I mean, business is tough, and so you just have to keep grinding through it.
Well, amen to that. And what's helped me any time that I felt stuck or discouraged or whatever, I tell myself there are tons of other entrepreneurs who are on a similar journey as me, and they're also coming across these difficulties, and they've given up. They can't handle the daily persistence or that hard work. So if I keep going, then I'm going to win just out of sheer willpower right there.
Yeah, and so I'm me and another gentleman named Matt DeCourcy, we host a podcast called The Startup Hustle, and that's kind of what it's all about. We always joke it's beers and tears. It's the founders getting together, and it's the trials and tribulations of being an entrepreneur. So.
But it is fulfilling. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it, or maybe we're just crazy. So I'm curious about some of these resources and URLs you have. We have Stackify.com. That's your company, and there's the Startup Hustle. So can you tell us, after listening to your conversation today, where should people go? What links should they be aware of to find out more about you and what you do?
Yeah, you can definitely check out Stackify.com, which is our main website for our application performance products. StartupHustle.xyz is the podcast that we host about startups, which is really fun. I host that with Matt DeCourcy. You can definitely look for me on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out if anybody has any questions. It's probably the best place to reach me.
Fantastic. So once again, Stackify.com. If you have a .NET or Java app that you think could go faster, or maybe you just want to put it through the ringer and make sure that everything's working smoothly, that your database queries are fast, or that things aren't running thousands of times when they could only run once or twice. And the StartupHustle.xyz is that podcast to find out what other startups and entrepreneurs are up to. And then also check out Matt Watson on LinkedIn if you'd like to connect with him one-on-one. So lots of just an amazing ride here today. Lots of things for us to think about. Lots of interesting stories and breakthroughs, aha moments even for me. So I really appreciate that. And it sounds like you guys are doing some great stuff with Stackify. So I appreciate you coming by, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot for having me.
This is Robert Plank. And would you like to be a guest on the program? Do you have an idea for a future episode, or do you just want to tell us how we're doing? Get in touch with us right now at marketeroftheday.com/ask to let us know.